on the channel.
I wonder why.
I want to have discussions, but you block me.
I think you can click the link, can't you?
No, you've hidden the link from blocking me on other channels, and so I can't see anything you say or the link.
Oh yeah, you might be an exception.
Yeah.
Well, see you around, huh? We'll get by. You did your thing. You did your discussions.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't really you don't have a position. You just sway in the wind. So
you judged me. You judged me. That's what you've done.
Well, what's your
position? In the name of godliness, in the name of your conscience. Yep.
Godliness and my conscience.
So the operative question for this episode, Mr. JG, is basically, is the last Adam greater than the first Adam? Have you given any thought to these wonderful figures of speech that Christ is the second man and the last Adam?
I think based on your philosophy, basically the whole Bible is a figure of speech. You guys know what I mean by that? Want to pause it? Does anybody know why I said that to him?
You're speaking live now? Yeah. So
okay,
you said that because there are certain passages that you really like that seem to accentuate the human and the importance of human action. And when I say it's figurative or not as important as the passages that reveal the doings of God, you just get all upset about that.
No, I was kind of asking like anybody else if they knew why I was saying that to you.
But for the sake of time, could you just tell us what you were doing?
The figures of speech. Well, he reduces his worldview or his philosophy to determinism. He tosses out ethics. So when we have the exhortations of Paul, don't do this, don't do that, or those who are drunkards, adulterers, murderers will not enter the kingdom, that becomes a figure of speech because everything is directed, everything is controlled, everything is determined. So he's just preaching things that are going to happen or are the case, which you have no process in, you have no will to change or alter or choose. So he reduces all that to figures of speech.
Are you saying it's sort of a pivot?
Are
you saying it's used as a pivot to avoid the question? Is that what are you saying the utility?
Well, yeah, I'm pointing out that you don't really get into a Bible study with someone who holds a determinist philosophy at hand. It reduces the teachings to just a story that
you would have preferred it to be focused more on the verses and not just what did you call them a second ago that he said? I lost it. How you described what he was doing?
I'm just pointing out the reason I said that about figures of speech is because the philosophy that he holds prior to going into the scriptures. That's what I think he keeps missing. He's like F philosophy, screw philosophy. I'm saying you're bringing in a personal philosophy when you get into the reading and interpretation, and you've already reduced most of it, if not all of it, to figures of speech. You can go ahead and play it.
Wait, I want to ask Ace. Ace, do you feel like you're avoiding the philosophical talk intentionally?
His brand of it, because when I say that there's a lot of figurative language in the scriptures, it's obvious there's a lot of figurative language in the scriptures. And when JG looks at a passage that says, those who commit such evil acts will not inherit the kingdom. Well, that's still a short-sighted understanding on his behalf, because flesh and blood. We just read it today. It was in the essay today. Flesh and blood will not inherit. So
So
it
you're
is God to change us from being flesh and blood to being something else, so that it is the determination of God that makes us a part of the kingdom or not.
okay. So you're saying the same thing about each other. You're both saying that your biases are causing you to treat the text differently, right? That's what you're saying, JG, right? He's got a
Yeah, I can
Well,
see
preconceived
that.
notion.
I'm going beyond what he's doing. He's just kind of coming in and say, "Oh, well, you kind of have your opinion and I have mine," and I'm going to what is prior to that, and I'm saying, what is an opinion without a will? What is behavior without an ethic? He doesn't understand these things.
Do
Why
you
would
do you see where he's coming from, Ace?
He doesn't.
Yeah, he's still looking at the human, trying to patch
Yeah,
up
the human is part of this, and he wants to take.
Hold
the
on,
human
JG.
part
Hold on, JG. I'm trying to make sure that I understand where each of you stand on it. Not that I'm important. I just want to have a clear view.
Right. So
Go ahead, Ace.
JG is looking at the human. He wants to patch up the human flesh to make it acceptable to God. And I'm saying, instead of the human will, let's look at God's will. Instead of the human doings, let's look at God's doings. What is God doing? And can God do it all? Can
So
he
you don't
get
see
exactly what he wants?
Right.
You don't see the purpose in putting a fresh coat of paint on a sinking ship? You don't see that.
Yeah. So he's trying to dismiss the human condition. Right. That's what he typically does. He's saying, look at God. Focus on God. You can still focus on God and be a human and be in the human condition, but he wants to ignore that, and that's what I'm pointing out. That's basically the very thing I'm pointing out, is his role, his will, he continually dismisses.
Do you think it's a selfish thing that he's doing?
It doesn't make sense. If he's fully determined, he's not coming to the knowledge of what he's claiming. He can't make the arguments that Christians are doing it wrong, because everyone's
I'm looking to motivation. I'm trying to say, do you think that he's doing it? Why do you think he's doing that?
Oh, I'm not worried about the motivation. I'm worried about the fact of the matter. The motivation is a separate issue.
Well, the motivation will always be there.
You've got to get someone to, at least like a third party like yourself, to see that, oh yeah, that doesn't make sense what he's doing, and then perhaps get into the motivation. You want to do it in the right order.
I see. Shall we go on with the video?
Yeah, man.
I think, based on your philosophy, basically the whole Bible is a figure of speech.
That doesn't really answer the question. The question is, have you thought about Christ being the second man and the last Adam, and what those two phrases might mean?
I tend to think about other things, like where a man's starting from. If he can make sense from his position, from talking to a person who's saying, well,
what if we want to think about Christ?
There's really no right or wrong way to do this.
What if we want to think about Christ,
really
and Christ as the second man and Christ as the last Adam? Is that a problem? Or would that be actually helpful?
I don't think there's any problem in your worldview from what I've gathered over time. You say that we're all being directed and there's no right or wrong way. So there really can't be a problem. It would just have to be a figure of speech, some sort of illusion.
All right. So
I have a question, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say, here, let me just remind your exact words.
Problem. It would just have to be a figure of speech.
Like when you say there's no right or wrong, like you're sort of illustrating someone with a certain worldview when you say that when they're going to make a decision, they say to themselves, there's no right or wrong way to do this, and that's part of their decision-making process because they, what?
Yeah.
Why would they? Because look, even if I think there's something directing me, I'm still having the experience of a person making decisions and trying to look at a situation and have the best outcome. You know what I mean? I'm still thinking
Well,
about things and saying, is this gonna take away from something? Is this gonna destroy anything? How is this gonna benefit the situation? Those things are all taking place. I don't just look at it and say, well, since there's no right and wrong way to do things, I think I'll do whatever the hell I feel like, and whatever I do, it's God's intention because God does everything. It's not me. Like I don't
Halsey,
think.
what is
Yeah.
the question?
Halsey,
Well, I just yeah.
Halsey, please. He accuses me of saying that I say there was no right or wrong. I've never said that.
Well, that's
Yeah.
so I'd like to hear more from Ace on that, because the way I view this is you've got the nature of being, the nature of knowing, and the behavior, which is a pillar in the worldview. The way you interact with information, the way you interact with the world, a right way and a wrong way. It's inevitable. Like even when it comes down to how you handle information, if you know something to be true, well, you can accept it or reject it. You're making an ethical decision or a personal moral decision in it. So when he argues from a determinist position, saying that God is doing it all, he's trying to dismiss himself and his own human behavior. So he negates the domain of ethics by saying, well, there's really no right or wrong way. God is doing it all. So you can't really have a discussion with someone like that who's irresponsible. He's trying to remove his responsibility from the reality at hand.
Can you give an example of something that he's done that tries to excuse an action that you think was sinful by thinking this way?
He excuses all his actions.
No, we need something specific.
No, it's all of them. That's the point.
Can you bring something specific? If you say it's all of them, you should be able to pick out one.
And he picks something.
You pick something. You're the one that brought this up.
He argues from a position that says he's not responsible for. So his arguments are not his, for instance. The whole thing collapses.
So you really think that Ace is not thinking about what he wants to say and what he wants to communicate and what the effect it will have is and all that stuff?
He is. I do think he is. However, his worldview dismisses his role in that.
You think of any other actions that you think are sinful that he excuses with this kind of thinking?
Sinful?
Yes. Yeah.
He excuses sin as God having him do those things.
It's a bit of a cop-out. Just come up with something specific because you're making the claim that he excuses his own human condition by saying God does it all and God's the one.
Yeah, that's a fair question. It's a day-to-day thing. Like some days he'll say he has no will. Other days he says he has some will. And that's where this conversation leads, is I'm trying to say, what are you responsible for? What is the will capable of? Can't get that clarified.
So do you know, you don't know much about Ace's willful acts, right? The ones that he just carries on day to day.
No, I do think he has a will. I do think he has a responsibility and he participates. He tries to dismiss.
Okay, even if he's,
You gotta let him finish, Halsey.
all right.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is a little bit deeper than you're fishing for. I'm going to what is prior. In his worldview, he's saying that he is not responsible for his actions, that he is fully determined. So anything that falls in that category. That's why I'm not trying to get into specifics. I'm saying he's across the board in his worldview, saying everything he does, whether he sins, whether he glorifies God, whether he burns his Bible, that's an act determined by God for him to do. He is not responsible.
Right, and that would be true for everyone if he was correct, right?
Yeah, he's saying that's for all people, correct. So this is just a matter of like, you're making noise that God is having you make. I'm making noise God is having me make.
Does what he say define what's true?
The truth can't really come into the matter because no one has any responsibility of acquiring any knowledge. It's just a determined vessel making noises. The truth can't be found in his worldview. That's what I'm pointing out. Ultimately, that's what I'm moving.
So wait.
That's why I like it.
That's ultimately what I'm moving to point out, is that he's destroying the possibility of knowledge and behavior. He's trying to remove the human will and the human interaction in these conversations. Say, look at God, right?
So do you think that there are things that happen that surprise God? That he wasn't
You're going in a different direction right now, though.
No, I'm not.
This is not about me answering about God being surprised, right?
Well,
This is about their interaction between each other. It's clear they have different theological bents, and they're going to argue about that probably for all time. But
I just wonder. Yeah, I mean, I just wonder.
Really would like to get through the rest of this video till it's over.
Yeah, right.
Right. The internal decision-making process between you and Ace, like, meaning you in your life and him in his life, are probably very similar. And I really don't think that Ace makes decisions saying, well, since I'm not ultimately culpable for my own actions because God's doing it, I think I'll do this. Like,
right.
to
Ace
choose
is telling us differently than
corrupt path,
Ace is telling us that he's not responsible, but I'm trying to point that out. I'm just critiquing his position.
Okay, what if Ace acts like he's responsible? Because here on Earth, you are responsible for your own actions.
Hold on. Ace is having to deal with all the consequences of his actions, whether it's his will or not. So he's aware that there are consequences for these
having
things.
to deal with something means you have a will to deal with that thing.
You're just talking about how he processes that information as to how it happened. It doesn't change the fact that bad decisions come with bad consequences, whether you think God made you do it or not.
We still don't know if he has a will or not and what that will entails.
You don't know that. Okay. All right. I don't want to take any sides on that. So.
Yeah, I appreciate the moderation, because, he might change his mind day to day. That's part of the problem, is the shifting position. And
you're talking past each other most of the time. I don't know if you guys see it, but you talk past each other.
Well,
constantly.
that's fair enough. But the point of going into the fundamentals of the situation, the coherency of the position itself, is key. Like, you can have two people who get up to a podium and just start flinging mud at each other. But when someone says, well, wait a second, how do you account for the things you're saying? How do you justify the reasons prior, the philosophy that you're bringing into the conversation? You have values, you have meaning, you have purpose that you're speaking of.
This happens every time. And he says it's how he reads the book. It's how he understands.
I think I'm doing I think you're right about talking past, because I'm going to a place that he doesn't seem to understand. It's prior to, it's into his suppositions and his presuppositions, and ultimately his ultimate presupposition. So he just wants to grant. This is very common in conversations. People like to grant themselves forward. But when you stop them and say, well, no, how do you justify the things that you're assuming? It becomes a very different conversation, difficult to navigate unless you know how to do that.
Are his worldviews, or the way that he processes the stuff, is it offensive to your sensibilities?
Well, no. What becomes offensive is the evasive, the characteristics that arise when you're in the conversation, like evasiveness, dismissal, and not addressing the subject at hand. So eventually I just walk. But the point of what I'm doing is relevant. Like, you can't say it's not relevant to challenge someone's suppositions, assumptions, and presuppositions. I don't know how you'd say, no, that's not important. I mean, then you'd have to justify that thing that you're saying. You can't really escape it. It's why the unbeliever tries to stay away from those who question their presuppositions, because it ultimately breaks down to, well, it just is.
Well, I think that's with everybody. It's just that people have different excuses to give themselves to say, yeah, I know more than other people.
Right. But, and we got into that. You and I did. It just is. And it breaks down to God just is. And that's where that lands.
Well, I don't have a problem with it until we start saying that we know it, like we can prove it. And then we lean on just the book, but this ain't about me. So with Ace, you're using the same book. You're just reading it differently.
That's not all that's happening again. He's bringing, it's inevitable that he's bringing
presuppositions.
Yeah, we have a worldview. Like, not everyone opens the book or any book and interprets it the same. We can agree.
And you'll admit that everyone reads with their own presuppositions that come naturally with them, inherent or created in youth. But it's not an option to read with a different presupposition and still fully take it on like you would if you were making it conform to your own ideas, which most people do.
Yeah, that's the domain I'm exploring. What he's doing, how he's navigating his.
Does that apply to you? Do
course
you
it
read it
does.
with a okay? All right, that's what I wanted to. Is there a way that you found to get out of reading through your own presuppositions?
No, that everyone's presuppositions can be challenged. It's just that I don't commonly deal with people that challenge me on the level I'm challenging them on. That's what we have at play here. But if you want to continue it, we're never going to get through it. I mean,
Hit
it
play, Halsey. Wake up.
gets a little more heated.
Halsey, did you step away?
No, I'm here. I just I hate it when this happens. I've lost track of the tab. That
It's one of
is
the 600 at
explaining.
the top of your screen.
Here it is. Here it is. Okay.
Some sort of illusion.
All right. So can you drop that for the moment? Okay.
No, you can't.
Let's pretend. Let's pretend that
probably
you have a bigger brain and a smarter
See,
heart.
I'm sorry to pause it right there, but
And
the
that
problem
you
that
can-
you can't get that. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Can we drop that for the moment? Like you got someone coming in and say, fundamentally, you have a worldview that's incoherent. You're coming from a standpoint saying it's all illusion. So I'm stopping him, right at the gate. He wants to go, no, let's just ignore that, and points this way and points this way. It's like a magician, like, no, look over here, and I'm staying right where I am, and he can't answer this, and that's basically what you have.
I want to hear that again because I didn't get that from that. Hold on.
for the moment. Okay.
No, you can't.
Let's pretend that
probably
you have a bigger brain and a smarter heart, right?
It's
and
a
that
problem
you
that
can-
you can't get past, but you
Why
want to
can't you get past it? You sound so stupid
which
Yeah. Anyway.
part sounds stupid to you?
that you can't get past it.
You can't get past it.
I can talk about Christ. I can
I
talk
understand
about
you can
Christ
talk
as the
past
second man and the last Adam. Help me. I want to see Christ. Would you like to see Christ? I mean, there were a couple of boys in the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, who approached the disciples and said to the disciples, we would see Christ. Would you like to see Christ? John the Baptist said, behold the Lamb of God. Would you like to behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world? It's a thing to see Christ and behold the Lamb of God.
You have a philosophy.
You are so
makes
fucking
sense.
focused on human action and what humans do. This is the
Yes.
old humanity that you keep talking about. We're not impressed by the old humanity. Nothing in the last 5,000 years of recorded history has done anything to impress us.
See,
The
pause
old
it.
humanity is full of bribery, black.
See, he's trying to remove the domain of ethics. Like, you're so focused on human behavior. And then he's going into this speech where, like, it's not important. He wants to focus on other things. I get that, but he cannot dismiss or divorce his behavior from any of this process. He is a part of this conversation. He is a part of the things he is proclaiming, and he wants not to be. And I'm saying you can't do that. You guys understand that? Does that make sense to you?
I'm not. I'm actually. I'm a little confused by what you're saying, but I'm going to run it back like in 10 seconds.
He's trying
so
to
that I-
dismiss. He's moving to dismiss the domain of ethics, human behavior, like saying, no, it's not important what we do. And while he's saying things that he thinks are important and he's doing those
Right.
things.
So you're. Hold on.
No,
You're-
he's
you're-
doing that on the basis of free will, which is part of the presupposition that it doesn't exist.
Say again?
On human.
I said he's doing that because of his views on free will, because you're talking about human behavior and all. And so for him, because his presupposition is there is no free will, that it's not, those things aren't even important and don't even factor in because there's a script and we don't have a say in it. Am I right, Ace? I don't want to speak for you incorrectly, but that doesn't seem like it would weigh heavily on your ideology.
Well, that's partly right, but the bigger picture is that we have 5,000 years of recorded human history, and all these ethics preachers don't seem to be getting anywhere because there's just piles and piles of blood and skulls and dead bodies. I mean, there's nothing, absolutely nothing that would impress the mind of an ethics guy,
No.
because there's so much unethical behavior out there.
The
No
miss,
matter how
you
much
guys are,
we
you're
preach,
missing
it
it
doesn't
again.
change a damn thing.
You're missing it again. This is not focused on the ethical behavior of preaching ethics. This is about you engaging in argumentation. It is implied, it is assumed when you talk to people and have a conversation, a discussion, a debate, that your position is right. The one that you're opposing is not right. This is assumed, this is implicit, and you're missing this. You don't get into discussion saying, oh, well, I could be right or could be wrong. You could be right, you could be wrong, and just talk. You have a position that you're assuming to be right. This is what people miss. This is what I move to draw out, and you keep dismissing it as though it's not relevant.
You got a question from the side chat here. If I was just a partial determinist, would you be thrilled?
Yes. But I think that's kind of the point. That's kind of the point. You are on some days. Like that's what I'm saying, you have this floating will. Some days you don't have a will, and then someday you have a little bit of a will. So you have this floating position.
What do you think is happening when Ace doesn't have a will?
He's going into full determination, and he can't argue because he has no responsibility. He can't hold an argument. He can't be right or wrong. Again, dismissing ethics, the domain of ethics in philosophy.
What's the mental process for giving up your will?
What is what?
How does one just stop having a will some days and other days they have it?
You got to ask Ace that.
Oh, he's the only one that's like that, or what?
No, he's the one.
He's the only one that's saying that, or it seems to be.
He's doing it.
changing
His behavior
by
has.
hearing, he hears A say things that would lead him to believe that there is free will, and then he hears A say things like there's no free will. So he's
No, I've
trying to-
asked him if he has a will today, and he'll say, "Yeah, but it's not important." But then on other days when maybe I'm not present, he'll preach like there is no will at all.
Well, he said multiple times there is a will. It's God's will.
Right?
That's the will, and we're just doing
So-
God's will.
So that's what the conversation is about. This very conversation. So I'm pointing to him. Well, if you do have a will, now you're entering the domain. You're pulling the domain of ethics back in, rightfully so. You're saying I have a will. I do things. I argue things. There is a right way and a wrong way to do things. I'm interactive in this reality. But he keeps avoiding that because I think intuitively he knows that will devastate his position.
I mean, he is interactive in this reality. We all are, but I think that there's like, even let's say that it's true that there's a script and that we're all just following along and we just can't feel it. We think we're having, because if this is true, right, then we think we're having an experience where we're making decisions, and we think we're having that whole thing, right, where we are determining where to go. We know, we're responsible for where we end up and all that stuff. But we are in a world where we do have to act just like that. Like we have all that power. We have to act like that. Otherwise, we will get knocked around a lot, and our lives won't be very good because we won't have achieved anything in the world, right? Without making the right decisions. We still have to do all that. We have to act exactly like we have a will, and that there's important consequences attached to all that stuff.
What does acting like you have a will mean?
What's the difference between acting like you have a will, because that's what it feels for everything that you can muster that you do have one.
There's a
right?
mirror side
Versus-
of all of these arguments. Like you wouldn't know whether you had a free will or you didn't have a free
Right.
will just based on how it
Exactly.
feels.
Yeah.
So the decisions that you're making and behaviors you're engaging in, you'd be acting like you had a will and not using a will to act like you had a will.
I'm trying my
You-
best to make good decisions, JG, whether or not
With your
that's
will- with your
my
will?
unique will that's doing that, right? Or if it's some other thing that's written me into a
How do you make
script.
a
that's
decision
the
without a
script.
will?
JG,
You
How
don't
do
understand
you
what
make
she's
a
saying.
decision without a will?
Okay, you don't understand what she's saying.
I understand that she's trying.
explain
just
to me
do-
what I'm
Hold on.
saying.
Steel
Explain
man
to
it.
me-
Steel man it back.
I guess she's giving a critique of a possible fully determined world in which you're acting like you have to make decisions because it's practical. in
No,
the way
not
things-
acting. Not
No.
acting.
Well, I heard acting in there.
I said if we didn't have a will, it would feel just like we had one. Like we,
How do
You
you,
know what I
have
mean?
that? How do you have that knowledge?
Look,
See,
because
I
it
don't want to
feels.
get into
Look,
discussion.
hey,
You're
because it
making it about me and
feels
you.
for
Hold on,
everything.
you're making this about
Hold on,
me
you
and
asked
you.
me a question. Can I answer it?
Well, it's more rhetorical. But
I do
what I'm
have an
saying is
answer.
you're making this about me and you. I think Will had a better idea of the moderating between Ace and I right now. You're sort of making it about me and you.
You
No
want to
offense.
dismiss my question? That's fine. I mean, it's
Go ahead.
okay.
Go ahead.
Like, I didn't know I was not allowed to be part of this, so I'll
No,
just
it's not bad. You can go ahead. It's just I think you're making it about me and you now more.
No, I'm making about your argument. I'm not. It's not about me.
Well, you're coming in as a third party trying to argue with me about
What's
determination.
Will
You're trying to-
doing? What's Will doing?
Well, we're
I'm
not.
trying
If
to
you point out
moderate
someone
between
else's
Ace and
behavior, that's not
JG.
really helping your case. I think Will was being more neutral as a moderator originally. I think that's kind of
Okay.
the point, is to hash out like
That's fine.
what's
I'm
going on
sure
with
that I'm sure that I can make my point later. Maybe whatever.
Could I just suggest, JG, that maybe after this or later on today or something that you would have that conversation with Halsey on your stream?
Yeah, but I
That's a
can
yes.
just listen to me for a second. I can do that, but you're not going to like the direction it goes in. It's going to have the same effect.
I'm not
When you
willing
start
to get on your
start
channel.
assuming things, I'm going to go into your assumptions, and I already know that you're a nihilist and you're going to get stuck.
Yeah, for you to say all that before we even talk is really kind of
What I'm trying to do is put this on the back burner so we can finish this
Yeah,
exchange to do
Let's
with
do that.
Ace and
It takes
JG.
away the sin of the world. It's
Yeah.
a thing. To see Christ and behold the Lamb of God.
You have a philosophy.
You were so
that makes
fucking
sense.
focused on human action and what humans do. This is the old humanity that you keep talking about. We're not impressed by the old humanity. Nothing in the last 5,000 years of recorded history has done anything to impress us. The old humanity is full of bribery, blackmail, and murder. And you want to talk about the old humanity and patch up the old humanity with proper ethical, moral behavior. Screw that. Let's talk about Christ, the second man, the last Adam, the new humanity, and the new creation. He is all of that. He is the beginning of all of that. He is the first fruit of them that are reposing. Why, JG, are you so fucking focused on the old humanity? You can't patch it up. There's no way in hell you can patch it up and make any goodness out of it. Jesus Christ came to end the old humanity. We even have a scripture for it right here. Romans 6:6, knowing this, that our old humanity was crucified together with him. What are you doing? Why? Why are you trying to patch up the old humanity? It's useless. Let's put it on the cross where it belongs. Let's put off that behavior. The old humanity wants to deceive you into thinking that you can patch it up with lots of band-aids and maybe so many it'll look like the mummy
Pause.
walking around. I want to talk to you about.
Okay. So I heard something there that Ace said. Ace, is it the reason that you don't worry about man's free will is because the consequences of both good and bad actions are already that's accounted for in God's plan? That's all a done deal and it's out of man's hands?
It is out of man's hands, yeah.
Is that why when the questions come up that you shrug it off and move to things that you think are more pertinent?
Yes.
He can't make the He can't make the arguments and make the point without a will.
I'm not justifying what he's doing. I'm just trying to understand. Yeah,
I'm just saying it's going to be the same point across the board. Like you can't do it without a will, without a position, without an ethic involved. I'm not talking about going into a speech on ethics or a sermon on ethics. I'm saying he has given me a position as a human being, a worldview where he thinks he's right implicitly and that I have something wrong, right? You can't avoid this. He has a will. When he bites the bullet and has a will, that entails a host of other problems based on the philosophy he teaches. That's what
okay,
I'm trying
but what I'm saying is that from his perspective, all of that is already paid for. Nothing that he can do will make any difference to what Jesus has already done for him and all other people. I
from
think that's
his
what I think
perspective.
why he doesn't focus on it, because he feels like it's finished.
This it doesn't matter. He can choose to focus on what he wants. He's being challenged on the coherency of his position.
Right. I'm not trying to defend. I'm just saying I'm looking at it as best I can through his perspective and why he sidesteps it. I'm not saying it's good to sidestep a valid question, but he doesn't. I don't think he puts any weight on the question.
Right, but this is not a question of like, oh, what color shirt you're going to wear today. This is a question of like, you built your house on sand. How long is it going to last?
Okay. Do you want to debate that point now, or do you want to finish the video?
Oh, you can go ahead. It's the same problem throughout it.
About the new humanity. But you say you can't talk about the new humanity? The second man and the last Adam?
It's like a 2-minute rant.
So, what do you expect? You come over here thinking that you can commandeer the channel and make it all about you?
No. You've been solved. You dismiss yourself. Your philosophy dismisses itself. It's just playing out. You say you're a fully determined vessel without a will. You dismiss right action.
Say that you are a fully determined vessel without
all
a will.
of us.
Look at this.
Keep
Look at this.
interrupting.
You have no ability to do anything other than what you are doing.
Yeah.
You're like a leopard who can't change his spot. You can't
say
crawl
that.
1 inch outside of your skin.
Why do you
You
keep
are
interrupting?
JG. Yes,
Yeah.
I am interrupting. This is my show, and
So
I
you
can
get to
preach
interrupt.
when I want to. You have control. You don't even let Tommy on your show because it's your show.
Did you
And
want
so
me to
you find
talk
a
to you, or do you
problem
want to
that
interrupt
I don't
me?
like it that you want to commandeer this channel? It's not really about you, JG. Your spots are spots. Your wrinkles are wrinkles. And you
Okay,
too.
none of that's relevant to what I'm saying. You're just filibustering.
You don't have a free
You
will.
can't get past you can't solve your
by
philosophy. It's a BS philosophy. You can't understand, or you reject it on purpose because you just don't want to deal with it.
Hey, JG, come closer. Let me tell you something. Flock philosophy. Flock philosophy. Tell me about what happened when Christ was roused from among
You
the
don't
dead.
make sense. Does that make sense
So
to you
what?
guys? Yeah,
Do I have to? I want to talk. It doesn't make sense that God would raise Christ from among the dead.
Pause it. No, I like
That's
it when you
good.
answer like that. That's perfect. He gives it away right there in a little bit of humor. He says, F philosophy, do I have to make sense? He's saying my worldview doesn't matter. I don't want to talk about my worldview, as he moves to talk about his worldview. And then he says, do I have to make sense? Why do I have to make sense? It's right there. It's right there.
Isn't whether or not he makes sense like subjective to the listener?
Yep. It's extremely subjective to JG.
It almost seems like at the end of that, it was, do I need to make sense to you? I think the to you part was left off.
Yeah, exactly.
When he's saying F philosophy, think about that. Like, everyone has a philosophy, everyone has a worldview. It's inescapable. It goes back to our behavior.
Well, that shouldn't offend you, though, that he said fuck philosophy.
No,
Not
it doesn't
everyone wants
offend
to
me.
get deep into the rules of philosophy or what we think are rules of philosophy.
I'm just saying, I think it's wonderful. I see it differently. Someone is saying, screw philosophy, screw worldviews. Let me tell you my philosophy. Let me tell you my worldview. That's
But this
irony.
isn't about, is this about Ace's behavior? Is this about what's
Yes.
true in reality?
He's entailed in the discussion. Inevitably, he is a part of this. Yes.
You take things to extremes, I've noticed, like the nuclear options for things, for ideas. like you say that he, Ace dismisses ethics like entirely when he does this one thing. Like he, like just now you said something. Let me go
Yeah,
back.
he's trying to remove his behavior from the process of him behaving.
Oh, like when he says fuck philosophy, like he might just be talking about fuck philosophy as part of what we mention in this discussion. But you
Right.
take it to fuck all philosophy everywhere for all time.
No, I'm pointing out that when you say that, it's ironic because that's part of your philosophy.
You know, this
Well-
is easy to resolve, Halsey. Hold on. Ace, what did you mean by fuck philosophy?
That philosophy is a rather new thought engine, and that if JG were to go back to the first century and visit the church in Corinth or Ephesus, they wouldn't know what the hell he was talking about. But they would
No,
know. They would know about the resurrection
not in a
of Christ.
formal sense, but even since humans have existed, they carry a philosophy, even if it's basic. Even if it's a guy sitting on the couch talking about his football team, he's giving you his worldview, his perspective, his philosophy, using the term in a general sense. Like you can't escape having a philosophy as a human being.
So when you hear philosophy, you hear Ace saying, fuck worldviews.
Yeah,
Is that,
he's
okay,
trying
so
to, right?
Ace, is that how you meant it? Do you mean fuck worldviews?
I don't even know what a worldview is.
A philosophy. It's just how you interpret the world around you and the things that you come in contact
All right.
with.
So when Christ was on the cross and he said, "Father, forgive them; they know not what they do." What kind of philosophy was that?
It was the
What kind of
philosophy that
worldview was
Jesus-
that?
It's a merciful one,
I'll
since he's
tell you.
forgiving those that are trying to extinguish his life spark.
See, once again, he's trying to isolate a situation to try to get out of the point, right?
No. He brought the point in. He said, "What's the worldview there?" Right? Like he brought in worldview.
Yeah, no, he's saying like, look at Christ on the cross. What kind of worldview does that? That's not relevant to what we're hashing out here.
He said, God, that he forgave those who were killing him. What kind of worldview is that?
Yeah. Okay.
So why is that not a valid question? What kind of worldview says forgive those who are killing you?
Well, I'm not saying it's not valid on some level. I'm saying in this particular discussion, you have a man saying, screw worldviews, screw my worldviews, screw your worldview, or here is my worldview, right? That's what.
Well, if you listen just then, he just accepted that Jesus had a presupposition, a worldview, a philosophy, and it
Good.
involved mercy towards those who were killing him. So he's
Yeah.
acknowledged that people have worldviews, and he's okay with Jesus's philosophy. So there must be something else that he is in conflict
he
with.
needs to
about
have a
different
will.
philosophy.
He needs to have a will to be okay with Jesus's philosophy, doesn't he?
No,
Oh, he doesn't. Okay.
But
no, he
somebody
doesn't.
made
He
a-
doesn't. Hold on. He doesn't have to choose to be okay with it. It either sits right or it doesn't.
So you're just reforming the concept into now he's not responsible for what he
I'm not
thinks.
reforming the concept. I'm just saying what you just proposed is that he is choosing how he feels about things, and that's not how it works. You feel a way about something, and then you choose whether it's valid or rational to have that feeling.
When you choose, you're using what? A will?
Yeah. If you're
Okay.
choosing,
So Ace has a will again. Good.
he never said
somebody-
he didn't have a will.
He
He
does
just
say
said
that.
it wasn't subjected to him.
That's what I'm saying. He floats in and out. That's part of the problem.
Somebody
Depends on
said
the
it
day.
a little differently in the side chat. He's not saying he doesn't have a will. He's saying he doesn't have a free will.
Let me just show you something, JG. Can you tell me with certainty that you could have left this stream 2 minutes ago?
It's a time travel experiment to look back and say what we could have done. We have to be in the moment in order to
Right.
assess.
So it's no, there's no way to prove that you could have left this stream 2 minutes ago. It can't be examined. We can't go back and replay it. We can't do anything but just assume that you chose to stay.
Okay, well, do you want to finish playing it since I'm here?
That's you, Halsey.
Tell me about what happened when Christ was roused from among
You
the
don't
dead.
make sense.
So what?
Yeah,
Do I have to?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to talk. It doesn't make sense that God would raise Christ from among the dead.
No, I like it when you answer like that. That's exactly right.
He's giggling.
What's funny when he says, "So what? Do I have to make sense?" That's exactly what I'm looking for. It follows his philosophy that he would answer in such a way.
In 1 Corinthians chapter 1, Paul writes that God chooses a bunch of fools. God chooses the stupid to embarrass the wise. Are you not on board with Paul's writings? I mean, he says clearly God chooses. We don't choose. God chooses the ignoble to bring down the haughty and prideful. That would be you. Because you need to make Paul says, even in that chapter, the Greeks seek wisdom and the Jews seek a sign. You are the Greeks. You are seeking wisdom and philosophy. Fuck philosophy. Tell me about Christ's resurrection from the dead and whether or not it changes everything or it changes nothing.
Everything, eventually.
Who is Collision of Souls talking about?
Somebody.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah, I hope whoever he's talking about uses cognitive processes. I mean,
There are many ways to be petulant.
Have to use cognitive processes to turn on your computer and get on YouTube and all that
yeah,
stuff.
right. You just don't seem to understand that. You keep pointing out that I'm doing it wrong. I'm saying things wrong. There's something I'm doing wrong. It's implied, if not explicit.
Is that what we're doing?
The Christians are doing it wrong. Everyone's doing it wrong. You've got it right. Again, implied, if not explicit. But when confronted with these things, you act like, oh, let's not talk about that. I don't want to talk about my position. I want to talk about what I want to talk about right now. Your position is complete folly, and you ignore this because you can't get past it, and you know it. Peter wants to know what makes your position folly. He thinks he's fully determined. Some days he has no will. Some day he has a little bit of will. He abandons ethics in his worldview, that there's a right way and a wrong way, while continually pointing out that Christians are doing it wrong. But when asked what they're doing wrong, he won't answer straightforward because he knows it goes against his position, that there's no right and wrong and that everyone's determined. If you're determined, you can't make arguments. You're not responsible for anything. You're just a vessel making noise. This is completely stupid, and I've pointed this out at length. There are a few people that get it. A few.
You're so special. How is it that you got it, but I'm just too stupid to get
Studying
it? Oh, yeah?
consecutively for years.
Really? And I don't study?
Yeah, you do study. You just don't study the particulars of the fundamentals of your position because it'll get in the way of what you're doing.
I read Galatians. Is that a problem?
Regulations with you. You know you can't get past this, and you're an older man and you're set in your ways, so you're like, F philosophy, like you said earlier.
That's right. Check this out.
Yeah, and you just keep trying to move past it, and it's not working. I'm going to go right back to it.
God delights through the stupidity of the heralding to save those who are believing. since in fact,
So when we
Jude-
act stupid, we look for verses to back up that stupidity is warranted, while at the same time saying we can't control anything and there's no.
That's pretty funny.
Anything else you want to add to this moment?
God bless stupidity, that's for sure.
Well, what are you doing? What are you doing there? Is
I'm blessing stupidity because
Right.
God delights through the stupidity of the herald.
are you saying you can't, like, you don't know what I'm saying? So you're. I just.
I know exactly what you're saying. You're saying let's patch up the human flesh. Let's put a lot of band-aids on it and wash it so it smells good. And then God will approve of us so we can get to heaven. Because as you said, Ace, it's not too late for you to repent.
Is
I
that
get you.
is that a steel man? Does he get me? I'm not sure anyone relates to what I'm saying about even engaging in the argumentation. You have to have a will, and there has to be an ethical standard in place to even do that. I don't think anybody gets that.
Yeah, well, you keep saying we must do. And I keep saying God does.
Yeah, I know you're trying to point to a bigger picture, but I'm saying even in doing so, you're part of that process. I'm pointing to
the
you.
bigger
I'm pointing
picture?
to you. I'm saying the processes that you're bringing in entail a will and entail an ethic in the position itself, and you either keep ignoring this or you don't understand it.
Well, if somebody doesn't get on board with my idea, it's just a time sensitive matter because God is the author of time. And throughout time, God changes things. He changes the way he deals with people and humanity and angels and everything until he gets what he wants because God has
You
a
think
will.
your ideas? You think your ideas is
God
what God
has
is
a
moving people
will,
toward?
and we have a will, but
Did you
a
hear that
pug,
confession?
a
Did you hear
pug
that
has a
confession
will,
right
and a bumblebee has a will. But I think God's will should be something that we consider more superiorly
Did
than
you hear
our
that
will, the
confession he
pug's will,
embedded in
and the
there?
bumblebee's will.
He said eventually it'll get to his teachings, Ace's teachings. Did you hear that? He think Wow.
Everybody will be made new in him.
Anyway.
Because God is the one who gives life and all and breath and all and all and all to all. So you don't have a brain that you created, JG. God gave you your brain
Yeah,
and
thanks for
its
telling me.
and
Thanks for telling me
its
that.
limitations. God gave you your brain with its limitations.
How is that relevant to any of this?
Well, you are rather prideful about how smart you are.
You just said that everyone's going to get to your teachings eventually. I find that
Everyone will
fascinating.
get to the place to where
You
God
were
becomes
talking about your
all in
teaching.
all.
Hold on, JG. That's not look. He's just saying the same thing that a lot of Christians say. Once you're
Yeah.
in heaven, on the other side, no one will have any doubt. Every knee will bow. He's not talking about a verse that you're not familiar with. He's just not calling the verse out.
No, I think you got to go back if you want to catch it. He applied that to his teachings.
See, he's going to take
Right,
one thing.
he doesn't think he's wrong. If he thought he was wrong, he'd change.
Right,
He thinks
exactly.
he's
And
right.
that's the ethic of the position that he holds that he's ignoring. Thank you.
Right.
He
You think you're
argues
right
because-
too. You think that
Right.
he's wrong because you think that you're right. That's the only
It's very
reason you think he's
simple,
wrong.
isn't it? Exactly.
Yeah, it's very simple. Now, how do you resolve these issues?
We get into I'm trying to resolve it by pointing out that he thinks he's right. I think I'm right because we have a will and we're acting in accord with that will.
Well, why can't God decide between the two of you and put a nail in the coffin of this argument?
If his position was right, if we were fully determined, God would be doing all this. None of this would be.
How do you know he's not?
That's what I'm trying to point out, is if it's the case, if what he's arguing is the case, there's no reason to argue. There's no position.
So he
There's
doesn't need to
actually
defend it.
happening.
He doesn't need to defend it to you or anyone else since it's just the way that it is and that arguing about it in his mind won't change it. Does he need to argue?
No, he shouldn't argue. He's reduced his reality to an illusion. That's what I'm saying. He calls it the
What?
relative.
Hey, you called it an illusion. Now that means certainly you must know something more solid, something with more substance then.
Yeah, I'm taking responsibility for my position. I'm saying that I have a position. I'm going to argue that it's right. And
You're going to say that it's right.
Right.
right?
I'm going to take responsibility for my position using my will, being a human being. He's dismissing that. It's key.
What part of that is he dismissing? I don't. What do you mean?
He's trying.
You're
He's
using your
moving
will.
He's moving to dismiss himself from the conversation somehow. I keep pointing this out to him, but again, he floats back and forth from having a will and not having a will. He makes it difficult in that sense. That's why I don't.
How can
typically
either of
talk
you know the status of will?
What's that?
How can either of you know and be certain of the status of will, whether it is free or not?
It's free in a sense that we're making choices, in a sense that we are responsible for our behaviors to a degree, and we didn't create this reality, but we're in it.
Okay, Ace, do you agree with what he just said?
His wiggle room is, he said, to a degree and in a sense.
Right.
In
Well,
other
everything
words-
is to a degree, even if it's 100%, it's still to 100%, degree. Okay. What part of it do you disagree with specifically?
How can you disagree with a vague comment?
That's a good.
No,
So,
it's
but
not.
you're not standing for an absolutely, totally subjected will, or you are.
Ask him.
Ask him what you think. Well, he would say that you don't believe there's any free will most days, but then some days you add a little wiggle room too.
Yes, we have a will, but it is not beyond causality, prior constraints, and influence.
Ah,
So
Okay.
therefore,
Right
it
there.
is not free.
Right there, he
It's
bites the
just a
bullet.
will. It is just a will. It's not terribly impressive.
it's
So
a
if he follows
constrained
that-
will.
He follows that to its logical conclusion. He bites the bullet.
He just said it's a constrained will.
I know. But the fact
okay,
that he
so-
has a will to some degree means he has responsibility for his behavior, which goes against the philosophy and the theology he's been teaching for years.
Okay, that's fine. If he's responsible for that behavior, then what did Jesus do?
Good question.
You're talking about a salvific issue, right? The forgiveness
I'm
of the
telling you
sin.
why it's not important to Ace, because
I know,
that's
but
what
he's missing the fact that he's making arguments and existing in a reality where he has a position that he's defending. He's also saying that he's not able to defend it, while he's now saying that he has a partial will or a weakened will.
So here's my
all
bias.
over that.
Here's my bias. I'm going to put it on the table. It looks to me like he's done the thing that Jesus said, which says, worry not about tomorrow, let tomorrow worry about itself. Ace doesn't spend a whole lot of time worrying about that or salvation or the other stuff, because he's pretty sure it's all laid out and that he can't affect it. Am I wrong, Ace?
I cannot help the salvation of God nor hinder the salvation of God.
Salvation is going to be a separate issue from what we're talking about, though.
Why?
Well,
It's
we're
not
not
salvific,
having
then
a
what-
salvific conversation. We're having a conversation about the coherency of a man's position, his arguments.
If
It's
there's
just-
any
look-
reason at all to be discussing this, it should be salvation. If,
Well,
if
look,
it's not
you're
even
going
on the table, we're just
I'm not
talking
saying
about-
it's not on the table or it's not important. This discussion is about something else in particular at the moment. You can understand that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to tell you that you're trying to sell something to Ace that he doesn't think he needs.
I'm saying if he dismisses the ideas that I'm bringing forth, I'm challenging him, saying, how can you make sense out of reality by dismissing that? He's not.
And he's
though.
telling you at the door, sir, I already have a vacuum cleaner, and I'm sure the one you're selling is nice, but mine picks up dirt just fine. I think that's
This is
what
No, but it's not a matter of vacuum cleaners. I'm saying, how
No,
do you
I
know?
was just
I'm asking him, how do you know that vacuum cleaner exists? I'm asking him a deeper question.
well, he's using it. He's using that vacuum cleaner. That's how he navigates life,
think-
or at least sees
Right,
the world.
he thinks he is. I understand.
Well, you think yours is better, but his is still picking up dirt in his mind. Can you show where yours picks up more dirt?
Yeah. I'm asking him a deeper question about the conversation at hand. I understand salvation is obviously the most important issue, right? And that's kind of what he does. He's like, well, I don't really understand what you're saying in this philosophy speak. points to the cross and says, let's talk about salvation. I get that. I get that technique. I understand.
Well,
that
to undermine the universalist position, you'd have to attack the salvific stance, which is where Christians have a problem with.
No, you wouldn't have to. You can go for the foundation is what I'm doing.
I guess, but like in his mind, it doesn't matter what humans do. God,
I know.
It's God's will
that.
one way or another.
That's part of what I know going into this process and what I'm doing. I know that. I know how he thinks about this. I know his position.
So what are the things that you guys actually agree on with that? You do believe that Jesus saved some, and there was will involved in that. Now, is it God's will or our will or Jesus's will that's in play for that?
You're complicating the matter a little bit, but we can agree on things, and we can also say, well, we can point to things. They can say, oh, I think that's right. I think we ought to flourish. I think life should flourish. But then there's the guy who says, well, wait a second. Flourishes for who? What is flourishing? What if I want you not to flourish and that makes me flourish more? Those are the questions I'm asking.
And you're a bad person. Sorry.
I'm saying I agree. I know I agree with Ace on things. I know I agree with you on things. But I'm going into the deeper conversation of the assumptions and the presuppositions, the coherency itself.
I'm going to need my life preserver for this. This is getting deep.
And he's implying that you're not ready for that, or that you can't go there because
I don't think he is. I don't think he is. I think he's trying to walk us carefully into how he sees it.
Thank you.
I don't think it's. I don't. Yeah, I don't.
I know, Halsey. I know what I said. Look, I appreciate what you're saying there, Will. And Halsey, I know what I said earlier seemed like presumptuous. Like you're not going to like it. I know you're a nihilist. Maybe I didn't have to say that, but there's a reason I'm saying that, because
why do you have to mention it every time? I know you're a nihilist, you're a nihilist, you're a nihilist. Like, why does that have to be like, why do you have to put on your special glasses to look at me?
Well, it's not that I have to, it's because I understand the position doesn't work right away.
So you're going to put on her position doesn't work glasses and filter everything I say through that, right?
Well, I'm just going to keep going back to why it doesn't work no matter what you profess. Same thing I'm doing with Ace. See, when you see comments like JG is trapped in his worldview, right? What I'm saying to you is we're all essentially trapped in our worldview, our perspective. We don't really escape it.
Can't step out of your brain. Right? You're stuck with the formulations of ideas that you carry with you and that
right. When you say F philosophy, screw worldviews, it's silly, right? Like you can see how that would be a silly thing to do. It's like screw my perspective, and then
but all of our chatter is just it's prattle, it's nonsense, it's dogs barking compared to whatever the truth is. We're just pretending that we have some grasp on it.
And we're still part of that. That claim itself assumes some truth is in place, right? That's where I'm moving.
Yeah, I'm not saying that truth doesn't exist. I'm saying that we play hell trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I agree. And when you go for the goods, you've got to go to what is prior as best you can, right? Like when you go to figure something out, you want to trace it back using induction. Say, I see this thing, but what is it? Where did it come from? How can it be? Challenging your own assumptions, because you're part of the process of whatever you're interacting with. Inevitably. Inescapably, yes.
Inescapable? We must be talking about the will of God, because the will of God is inevitable and inescapable.
Yeah.
So if the will of God is like an overarching will that like all the other wills are contained within, but ultimately that overarching will have always been what it was. Like how does that support the idea of free will?
That's a difficult question. Because you can have an all-knowing God doing things that you're never going to understand fully. And all you have are the resources, aka the scriptures, to look at how you walk with God, what draws you back to God through Paul's exhortations and attestations, saying, I don't know how you did this or why you did this, but it seems to be the case that Paul is telling me I ought to do certain things. I should behave in certain ways.
JG, I have a question. Would you agree that the giant vacuum is working regardless of the cleaner that some of us got a Hoover, some of us got a, whatever the name brand is, but it's a giant vacuum and we each can agree that we're vacuuming. We're being vacuumed
you
up.
can be challenged on that very claim. I can say, what are you vacuuming? What's a vacuum, right? That's what I think is being missed or dismissed here. I'm the guy asking you what you know about the vacuum, how you know a vacuum even exists. I'm that guy, the guy that you didn't want to deal with, in a sense, right? Like the things that you already think you've moved past and are assuming. I'm challenging those things right down to your fundamental presupposition.
What do you think is a fundamental presupposition of any of this?
The ultimate, what is ultimate in your reality, ultimate authority?
I have no idea. I'm not in contact with anything that has claimed to be an authority.
Yeah, right. Well, you'd have to have some sort of ultimate authority to make the claim that that's where you are in some sense, right?
No, I don't. No.
There's a necessary circularity there. Like
when you say authority, what kind of authority are you talking about? A universal authority or some other kind? What are you talking about? When you say ultimate authority, I think ultimate.
The ultimate authority in your worldview, like what resolves what is true and what is false.
I don't have one.
I know.
Right now, the ultimate I guess authority would be anything that can be identified with logic, reason, science, evidence, proof, because that's all I have right now that's solid enough to trust. But otherwise I don't know. I don't name an authority. If there is one out there, I'm open to meeting it, but nothing has come to me yet. So I don't trust that a book could claim to be an authority and then say, okay, since the book says it, it must be true.
I mean, that's an interesting answer. I would hash that out with you more. I think that's an honest answer, and I think there's something there. But we can talk later. We can get through this, and then I got to do some stuff. Right and wrong. That is stupid.
Jews signs are requesting, and Greek wisdom are seeking. Yet we are heralding Christ crucified. To the Jews, indeed, a scandal. It's a scandal to you and your pals that Christ was
say the
crucified.
Wrong. Tell us outright that we're doing something wrong. Just get on with it.
To the Jews, a scandal.
Tell me what Peter W. is doing wrong, flat out. Say Peter
to
W.
the Jews,
is wrong
it's
for doing
a
this.
Scandal. Yet to the nations, it is stupidity. Christ crucified is stupidity.
You won't do it because you have
brag
a faulty
on Christ crucified, or are you just absolutely into philosophy?
Does it matter what I do? Can I do something wrong? Is it not God doing it through me?
Of course it's God.
Okay,
look at
so
verse 21.
are you yelling at God for doing what he's doing through me? What are you
look
doing?
at verse 21. We got a really good synopsis here in verse 21.
I'm trying to point out again our behaviors. Am I doing something wrong? Tell me what I'm doing wrong. Oh, it's God doing it. He's saying it's God doing it. It's God doing it. God's making me say this. God's making me point that out. God's making you do that. So I'm trying to siphon out his responsibility in all this. And Will just asked Ace here on the live panel if he has a will. So he has conceded that he has a will. So this is going to be the problem. He bites the bullet, and his philosophy will fail if pointed out. I just don't want to keep doing this,
Can I point out something we said just a little while ago, that if God is ultimately sort of like the umbrella that contains all wills, and that ultimately God's will always is going the direction that God wants it to, then like the ones inside are working with that as the result. So with that as the result, God decides that, right? God doesn't take a chance and say, oh, at the end, he sees a failure in that, right? Like the will of him is what prevails. So if all wills are contained within that, or do they not affect things? Like, do our wills not affect?
No, our will, the word free will is confusing because the concept is more like a limited will, right? Like you're bound by presuppositions, assumptions, experiences, and so forth that go into
And
your
even
choice.
your own body gives your will a limited array of things to choose from. It makes you crave things when you didn't want to do that at all.
Right.
Yeah, just imagine your body dragging you over to the toilet to puke. Where is your will in that?
Yeah, you can bring up a scenario where you feel like you have less control, and other scenarios where you feel like you have more control. It's just showing you sort of an array of a spectrum of choice. If you're asking how God does all this, well, some of that's going to be mystery. Paul talks about we can never fully know the mind of God. So, what I say to something like that is that God has determined things. He's given us some choices and some will for whatever reason. It's not going to alter his plan, but I think what it comes down to is love. He's not going to force his creation to love him. That's not what love is. Love is the ultimate choice, in a sense that it's what drives us. It's what drives humanity.
I mean, if
Hey,
if
JG,
that was,
I got a question. Would you agree that God gives each person a measure of this understanding?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hit play. For since, in fact, in the wisdom of God, the world, through wisdom, knew not God. Well,
You're a
isn't
vessel
that
of God, fully
amazing?
determined, making noises at me. I'm making noise as a fully determined vessel, back and forth. No one's right, no one's wrong. That's all
You
you
and
have.
I, the whole damn world,
He can't get
we do
past
not
this.
know God, and
He's stuck
this
in this
is
stupid philosophy, and he can't
this
get past
is
it,
the
and he
wisdom
knows
of
it. You're stuck, and you just want to keep moving forward. So you have to avoid people like me who know this. Okay, I'll
God.
leave.
Avoiding-
That's all.
You're,
It's just the same stupid shit
you're
with you. I'll
just a
leave.
self-righteous idiot.
You can't say people are
Tell me
self-righteous
how
when God's doing
wonderful it is
everything.
that you are so proud that you've studied philosophy.
It's so
and
simple.
You can blather on about philosophy. I'm
This
so
is
proud
so
of you.
simple.
I am proud of you. Nobody is like you, man.
Stop.
No, there are
Pause.
people that understand.
This is all very personal stuff. It's underlying that there's a personal issue between the two of you. You guys are butting heads like a couple of bucks, but it has less to do with the scripture than you really want it to appear.
Yeah, what is he said self-righteous. What is self-righteous in a fully determined view? It'd have to be a figure of speech, wouldn't it?
Well, he's saying that you think that you're the one saving you.
Yeah, but if I'm fully determined, it has to be a figure of speech.
You were meant to feel that, I suppose.
It's not really me being righteous. It's the determined vessel and another determined vessel determined to say I'm self-righteous. It doesn't make sense.
Is there any way to resolve the conflict?
Well, it kind of has resolved itself by your question earlier, where you got Ace to say that he has a will. He wouldn't say that to me in this conversation. That's where I was moving, but he said it to you. So it turns out
He
you're a decent moderator between
will.
us.
He said he didn't say he controlled that will. He just said he had a will.
Oh, so we're back to that.
Well, no, it's just we can't put words in his mouth and say that he's saying that it's his will and it's free, that he can do what he wants with it. I don't think that came out of his mouth, though.
Right.
He just said he had a will, and if you ask him, he'll tell you that will is God's will. Everybody is just doing God's will.
Okay, so we're already back to a determined will within.
That came from me. That came from me. Ace hasn't
You got
spoken
to ask
yet.
him.
Right? Exactly. So, Ace, was I incorrect about what I assumed you would say about your will?
That's right. You were correct. We all have a will, but we for sure shouldn't brag on it. I mean, look at how many girls get married and they want to be married, and then they get caught in bed with the bridegroom on the wedding night. What in the hell is their will all about? They want to be married, but then they don't want to be married. We want this high paying job, and then when we get it, we've quit. What the hell do we know about our will? It's very fickle and easily influenced. And that's why God had such an easy time in the Garden of Eden. Adam, do not eat of that fruit. And then there's every reason in the world for him to eat of the fruit. Did God get his will? Or do we have to look a little deeper and say, oh, God got his intention, not necessarily his will? The same thing with, we can see
It's Judas. It goes to Judas, okay? Because all of these things are brought to a microcosm in Judas. He was indwelt, if you ask some Christians, by the devil or whatever, and forced to do against his will this thing to make a prophecy come true. So that's a challenge to the idea of free will being a constant.
And we look at Pharaoh as well. God's will in that regard was, let my people go. And God kept hardening his heart. So what the hell is going on here? What's the difference between God's will and God's intention? God did not want the people of Israel to be let go so easy. No, he wanted it to be a slow, painful process so he could display his power. God's will was one thing, and God's hidden intention was another. And so on this, right here on the screen, 1 Corinthians 1:21, it's the wisdom of God to make sure that the whole damn world does not know God. That's really cool. And we think we have a will? Oh, man. Only the young people think that their will is free. Once you get old, you look at the world and you go, oh, my God, you guys are so predictable.
Ace, a comment about Pharaoh. It's not a bad example, but there's lots of excuses about circumstances hardening Pharaoh's hearts. But when it comes to Judas, it's said that he was indwelt by something.
Exactly.
And even the idea of demonic possession at all shows that the free will can easily be subverted and something else's will can take over the human instrument.
Right. So man's will is only mildly impressive for maybe 5 minutes.
And it's back again.
I would never cheat on my spouse.
You see what I mean, though?
What about Judas, JG, and the indwelling? What does that say about free will when someone is possessed?
I mean, we can look at Pharaoh, we can look at Judas, we can look at Jeremiah.
I just want to talk about Judas.
Yeah, I know. Specific cases is what I'm saying. Like, we can look at those cases and say, wow, they didn't have a will. But when we try to carry them across the board and say all people are in the same circumstance, I think that's where
it's not saying that all people are in the same circumstance, but it's not excluding that either. It's just saying there's reason to believe that free will is not absolute.
I'm not trying to there's a reason I'm not trying to hash that out, because it's never going to get fully hashed, I don't think.
Okay,
what do we do?
The reason I moved to the position of the interlocutor is to point out that if you're going to dismiss will, then you're going to dismiss your own argumentation and your own position itself. There's a reason I stay there.
Okay, Will Freeman, screw Judas. Look at Peter. Peter, out of his own free will, said, I would never deny you 3 times before the rooster crows.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. His will was saying this, but even Jesus's will was not to get on the cross, but not my will, but your will.
Oh my!
What he said. So
now we're talking big stuff.
There needs to be a will in place for those things to happen. So it's assumed.
Yeah, and it also means that Jesus's will is different from the Father's.
Well, Christ is going to be a unique position.
No.
Yes, obviously.
No, he just said he it's not unique. He said, not my will, but thy will. And I guarantee you that just about every one of us in that position would say, "Look, I really want to do this, God. Is there another way?"
well, you're moving into a Trinity argument there, but the point is that there's wills.
Not only that, but it's different for all mankind now because of that one act.
You can't have God's will overriding will or saying it's not aligned without having a will in place to begin with.
Yeah. I'm saying that Jesus has a will, God has a will, but Jesus is probably of the mind that he has free will.
You have a will. Ace has a will again, but he said it was God's. You got him to agree to that, and then he just came back and said, "Well, I have an itty bitty will that's not important for like 5 minutes." So he keeps floating in and out. You see?
And you are saying that your will is all powerful and all determinate?
Straw man. That's
You're
what he
full of
does.
shit, JG.
He moves in and out.
You
and then
also
when he
admit
goes
Okay,
down,
gentlemen. Okay, look,
he
we're
can't
not
work
gonna
it
get into
out,
this.
so he moves to a straw man. Classic Ace.
Is free will necessary in the formulation or in the formula of salvation? JG, this is to JG.
I'm not getting into salvation or
It's
wherever
the
he
only
wants
thing
to
that
go.
matters in this whole discussion.
Again, you want to bring it to what's more important. This is just
Yes.
not important. Let's go to salvation. I get that.
No, salvation.
We have a conversation
The conversation is about will and whether it's an element that's necessary for salvation.
No,
Since
but
the
you're
point of the
moving
book
in a
is salvation.
direction. You're moving it in a direction.
So humor my ignorance,
How are we ever going to get through this?
because it's important to me. You guys have been having your discussion. I'm just saying, in that, does free will factor into to salvation?
Someone's will would factor into everything in their life. I'm
So there's
pointing
a
out
free
it starts
choice.
with your position in the way you argue and talk to people. Okay, it factors into all of it. If you dismiss it, then you have no argument. That's simply what I've been pointing out the whole time.
So I'm going to take that as a yes. It's a necessary component of salvation, is to be able to freely choose something, right?
You don't escape having a will if you have a will.
Okay, so it's by will, and I need to utilize it to attain salvation, right?
Well, how are you going to get rid of it?
I don't know. I don't know that there's a way to get rid
It
of
seems
it. I
to
don't
be
know.
present. It's present in your life. So work it out.
Can I not be indwelt with the Spirit and make a decision that I wouldn't normally make?
I discuss these matters worldview to worldview. So you're complicating this by talking to me, because now I'm talking to Will Freeman, who has a very different worldview and perspective than Ace Theo. So this gets complicated. I have to now get into how you know things.
No, the book didn't change.
How you account for that knowledge to formulate these questions.
No, Will Freeman's question didn't change the nature of the book and the information inside of it. I'm just saying, from the book's perspective, is free will necessary for me to reach out and grab salvation?
Will, I'm trying to tell you something right now that's important. To get into this discussion with me is a one-on-one scenario where I'm going to get into your worldview. I'm not just going to grant you biblical questions. That's just the way I operate, and I hope that you respect that.
I'm trying to understand why there's extra steps to go through for you to answer the question. But if this is the way that you can answer, and this is the only way you can answer, then I'll accept that.
There's a particular way I do this, yes.
And it involves asking me for information.
Of course. Absolutely.
That's a strange way.
You want to get into what your interlocutor, where they're coming from. You don't just, you wouldn't, I would say I wouldn't just let someone skip steps and grant them a position. I wouldn't let a nihilist come in and start talking about meaning and value and purpose. I would say, wait a second. How do you arrive at meaning, value, and purpose? Right? I want to know those things before I start engaging. So you're taking this a different direction. If you
so I don't need the book. I don't need the book at all for that discussion. Then, if
you guys are done with the critique, that's cool. Maybe it's played.
But just for future, in case we ever have that conversation, will the book be brought into reference then? Since it's not important now in that conversation, will the book be brought into reference at all?
Well, the book, when you're talking to me, the book, the Bible is always going to be in reference. But
So
to
when I
get
ask
into the-
questions about it, it shouldn't be put on the side until you assess my ability to understand the
well,
scenario.
when you say something like it shouldn't be, I'm gonna question, that ethical claim there about why.
Because I'm asking you for information about a book that will not change based on my opinion.
I'm still questioning your how you're arriving at what the right steps are in engaging with you.
Well, because you just told me you have to do it in a certain way. You can't just give me information out of the book. You have to assess what I already believe in order
No,
to talk to me.
I didn't quite say that, but I am saying that I do it a particular way. Yes. You said you respected that. So what's
I did. I just wanted to know in the future when we talk about it, will you be leaning on the book to explain this in your process?
I'm presupposing the scriptures. So of
Okay.
course it's inevitable.
Okay. That's you've answered what I needed. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Hit play.
And this is just you just keep going on anyway. You think you're
He
going to get
always wins. He always wins. Remember that.
what is Ace going to say?
I'm going to say, in the wisdom of God, the world knew
He's
not
saying
God.
God is doing everything and everything is right, and then he's
In the wisdom of
complaining every day in
God.
his memo about how people are doing it wrong. You guys don't even see this. You guys won't even confront him on this stupidity.
The wisdom of God, the world knew not God. That's the wisdom of God.
Why don't
That
you
is-
guys confront him? I know that you guys have an inkling at this point, like, yeah, it doesn't really make sense that God's doing everything, but then people are doing things wrong, but there's also no right and wrong.
We constantly confront each other.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you do a little bit. You did yesterday when
Yeah, we do.
writing
We
his memo.
do. You, me. Yeah, so what you're complaining about? Join with us. Reason with us.
There is no reasoning with someone who says there's nothing that his will does. There's no right way or wrong way. He's leaving it open, saying we can't be right or wrong, and then he keeps pointing at Christians saying they're wrong.
Yeah, but
It's not reasoning. That's folly.
Says you.
you're kind of
I
like
didn't say
implying
you're
that.
correct.
You want to hear something about God? Well, God, Romans 11:32, God locks up or imprisons.
Just then, I just want to say this. It sounded like you were sort of calling Ace morally bereft by saying that he was someone that doesn't, the whole thing about right and wrong again. That's kind of the extreme I think you take it to in your mind, because I don't think that that's how Ace lives, and I don't think he's that kind of person. But in your mind, that's the kind of person he is. Someone that's morally bereft.
I agree. He doesn't live that way. I'm pointing out his philosophy attempts to bring that in, and he doesn't live that way. So I agree with you, but I'm giving him an internal critique, saying, why are you in the domain of ethics? Why are you arguing with me? Why are you implying that I'm wrong while holding a philosophy that says there is no right and wrong way? How are you able to do that? That's what I'm pointing out.
I mean, Ace, do you believe that
That's
there's
valid.
no right and wrong way of doing things? Like, is there a right and wrong way to treat a child?
It
an
doesn't
elderly
even matter.
person?
It doesn't even matter, Halsey, because any critique of JG's actions is a direct critique of what God has willed for JG to do in Ace's worldview. That's why JG is throwing a flag.
Okay. Shall I press play again?
One more thought. Romans 5:20 says, where sin abounds, grace did much more abound. But read between the lines of JG and the Christian boys. They say, where grace abounds, oh my God, you're going to get a whole lot of sin. So it's just the opposite of Romans 5:20.
But they're not choosing what they believe, Ace. They're not choosing
That's
what
right.
they say.
That's right. See, right there on 1 Corinthians 1:21, in the wisdom of God, the world knew not God, and God imprisons all in unbelief that he might show mercy to all.
That's a direct quote from Romans right there. You didn't change that in any way. You didn't ace that up.
No, it's straight ahead.
It does say mercy on all.
Right. And God imprisons them all in unbelief.
So he imprisons them. He makes them not believe so that he can have mercy on them without their belief.
Well, ain't that something?
He needed the practice.
No, well, I mean, it's pertinent because if this is a valid scripture, it seems to throw a wrench in a lot of the girl. Sorry, my dog. Yeah, if it's a belief condition, he can't have mercy, and he can't blame the unbeliever if they're imprisoned in unbelief.
Right.
Right.
And-
So,
and-
Will, you had it a second ago. I appreciate you pointed that out. That's right. We can go into these things and say, "Oh, that's very interesting. Like, how long is this imprisonment? Is this permanent? Is this temporary? Is it partial? Is it full? We don't really know." But this is why, like you pointed out just a second ago with the flag, you go back to his whole belief system itself. Right.
Right, but just the verse that he's got highlighted says God imprisons all in unbelief, that he might have mercy on all. As though unbelief is not a choice that the individual has made. It's something they can't get out of if they wanted to. It's all up to God.
We don't know the conditions of this verse, where I think it's tending to be assumed that
Well,
it's
unbelief
permanent.
is not one of them, because that's the one condition that it addresses.
Right, but we don't know if that is permanent. We don't know the time.
No, it's not permanent.
The time allotment of the unbelief. Like you could say, God,
Every knee
Listen.
will bow, so it can't be permanent.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, like, you could try to argue that someone who doesn't believe, it's because God imprisoned them their whole life, and then someone that didn't believe for a time period was only.
Okay,
Stuff
but who
unbelief.
tells God when to relinquish the unbelief statute that he's imprisoned them in? When is it
I
up
don't
to
know.
us to undo that, or does God undo his condition?
These are things that you typically hash out with believers who presuppose the scriptures, who think there's a right way and a wrong way. This is the point of going back again.
What does that do with the question and the way you answer it? Why does it matter whether I'm a believer or not for you to answer that?
Well, I thought that at this point you were starting to gather that.
No, there's not a different answer for unbelievers than believers. There's
In
text
the way
that say a
right.
thing.
No, I disagree. In the way you establish your reality prior to hashing these things out, it's important to know.
I need to already be in a submissive state to just have this stuff preached into me and just accept it and receive it and believe it. That's what it seems like you're saying.
Well, in a sense, you're talking about a commitment, so you're correct in that sense. But as far as someone granting you the position to go into the Bible and interpret it, they say, well, wait a second, you're creating doubt, you're creating questions. Let's explore why you have doubts and questions. Where does your reality start? What do you think is real? What do you think you know?
You need that for a book report. You need that to assess a book.
I think I do, and I think that's why I've studied in this area for so long, because I continue to see the relevance. If I'm talking to someone who says, well, I make up what is right and what is wrong, but I want to go into your worldview, into your script, into the scriptures you profess are true, and tell you what is right and wrong and what I doubt, while saying, well, I just make up.
That's not what I'm doing. That's not what I'm doing. I'm taking things like the idea that God repents of making man and saying, okay, it says here that God repents. And then I'm looking at Deuteronomy 32:36, where it says God is not a man that he should repent. And I say, that's a contradiction in the book. It doesn't matter what my worldview is or anything like that. It just says two different contradictory things.
I disagree with you. I disagree when you say your worldview going into this doesn't matter. Again, it's the same thing we just had 10 minutes ago.
All that matters is my reading comprehension. I can read that God repents and that God doesn't repent in the same.
I disagree.
Old Testament.
You said you respectfully understand why I disagree about this in a different subject area. It's
William,
the same thing.
You've got to balance that out, William. Man is a sinner, therefore we repent. God is God. He repented from making man in the sense that he regretted from making man for the wickedness that was in the heart. You read what Jesus says in the Gospels. He says all wicked things come from the heart, not from God, but all wicked thoughts, blasphemies, the corruption of the flesh, immorality,
Right.
whatever you want to call it.
So God did repent.
All comes
God
from
did
man.
repent.
All comes from the heart. Sorry. All comes from the heart of man, not from God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but God repented of making man.
No. But you've got to distinguish God repenting, in other words, regretted for making man, and that God is not a man that he should repent. We are man. and we repent because we are sinners. God is not a sinner. God is God and perfect and holy. You've got to distinguish the things.
So
You
because
have
it's
no
God,
Holy
he can. So because it's
because
God, he can repent even though he can't repent.
the word also repent means to regret. He regretted from making man. Not that he sinned, because God can't sin. God
Well,
cannot sin.
he
He's
missed the
perfect
mark
and
with
holy.
man.
God never missed the mark
Making,
whatsoever.
if he regrets of
Wickedness.
making man, he's acknowledging that he made a boo boo.
No, because God never makes a mistake. Wickedness comes from inside the heart.
So
Every
God repented
single day.
of a good thing. He repented of a thing that he did in full knowledge that it was the right thing to do. That doesn't make sense either, buddy.
Well, but
All right,
of course it doesn't.
Ben,
It
Ben,
doesn't.
cool.
It doesn't make sense to you because you
Ben.
have no Holy Spirit within you. That's the truth.
All right, I'm going to put you on mute, Ben, so that you'll cool your
Jay,
heels.
reject these heretics in Jesus' name. God bless you, Jay.
Yeah.
All right, take care. Well, see, he made a move similar to what I was driving at, even right when he's talking about the commitment or you coming into something without having what you called submission. Right? The concept was still there in what he was saying to you.
Yeah, he wants me to have his presupposition when I read the book.
Well, if he was geared to exploring that with you, like I am, he might say, yeah, let's get into how you come to knowledge and what you think is real. He would ask you those questions and it would be relevant. You wouldn't be able to say, well, that's not relevant. And I think
Okay.
in a way, you're trying to say that, but you're going back and forth a little bit.
Okay.
Hit play. It's all in unbelief. Isn't that special? Nobody has belief because God made sure of it. God imprisons all in unbelief that he might have mercy upon all. Cool. That's King James. And that kind of parallels 1 Corinthians 1:21. In the wisdom of God, the world knew not God. I love the wisdom of God. And I love the wisdom of God that designed the whole thing so that the world knew not.
So when you love something, do you choose to love it? Do you use a will, or are you determined to say that you love the wisdom of God?
What do you think?
It depends on the day with you. That's why I'm asking.
You want me to exaggerate the importance of my own will?
What is your will capable of? What is your will responsible for? You talk about will every day and you can't even answer these basic questions because you're lost.
I am. In the wisdom of God, the world knew not God. Check it out. I am lost. I'm part of the world, and the world knew not God through the wisdom of God. God's operations are to imprison all in unbelief and stubbornness, that he might have mercy upon all. It's a time thing,
Are you found?
Every day he talks about will. Many times he has a complete stream about will. He doesn't even know what his will is responsible for. And you guys don't find that a bit fishy?
Yes, but are you found?
In what sense?
In Christ.
Yes.
Are you found in Christ Jesus?
Yes, my particular witness is against, these fallacious positions of these heretics who are just making up stuff, saying, oh, that we're not right or wrong. We're not doing anything. We're not responsible. I've learned to overcome those particular positions like I'm doing right now.
Well, thank you.
This man you're learning from is in complete folly. And he knows it. He can't answer basic questions. He doesn't even know what his will is capable of because he says, oh, I want to focus on this. I want to focus on this. Just tell us what your will can do. Tell us what you're responsible for. If you're going to say you're completely irresponsible, then you can't make arguments or make points or point out that anything is right or wrong. So what's it going to be?
Well, God has the right to teach through fools.
That's not what we're getting at.
Like you or
You're missing
me.
it. You're missing it. I was asking Ace.
Oh, sorry.
What is your will capable of? What are you responsible for? He's got nothing. You see, nothing.
All right, I'll show you something about the human will that we can bank on. Do you like to go to the bank?
I do.
All right, well, go ahead and take Romans chapter 7 to the bank. So we get down here to Romans chapter 7, verses 15. It says, for what I am affecting, I know not. For not what I will, this I am putting into practice, but what I am hating, this I am doing. Now, if what I am not willing, this I am doing, I am conceding that the law is ideal, yet now it is no longer I who am affecting it, but sin making its home in me. For I am aware that good is not making its home in me, that is in my flesh, for to will is lying beside me, yet to be affecting the ideal is not. You want to know about the power of the human will? Check this out. It sounds embarrassing. For I am aware.
Ace, I'm asking you about your will and your responsibility. You can read this. Good. Are you
Yeah.
the question?
I'm aware. Here's my answer.
You're not-
I'm aware that
said
the
you have-
good is
you're
not
not
making
answering the
its
question.
home inside of me. That is in my flesh. For to will is lying beside me, but to be affecting the ideal is not lying beside me. What do you got on that, Uncle JG?
Can't answer the question. It's the
The
same
will
thing. You can't even
lying
answer.
beside me?
You can't even answer. You don't even know. You think you're not. You think you're completely
I'm
irresponsible.
telling you that the human will is not all it's cracked up to be. Your will.
I want to know
is-
what it is. Not. I don't want to hear you say it's not cracked up to be something. What is it? What is it capable of? What are you responsible for? Answer the question, or just say you can. Because I know
Do
you
you
can.
know? Can you answer your own question?
Yeah. When I make arguments, I'm responsible for them. For starters, it's not God. I don't say, "Oh, I'm going to say a bunch of things and teach a bunch of things," and whatever I
Is
say
it
and do, it's
true
God.
that
I
is it
hold
true that to be
responsibility.
affecting the ideal is
You
not
don't even
lying
understand.
beside
You
me?
don't even understand the basics of your position. And when they're explained to you, you're lost.
Complaining is not a suitable retort.
It's not complaining. I'm being flat out with him. This
Yeah,
is
it's a
complete
complaint,
folly.
and it's not a suitable
A
retort.
man has a position that he can't even answer for. He's like, I'm not responsible for anything. He's been telling you for years.
Okay, that's repetitive complaining. Is not.
Oh,
a
because it
suitable
hasn't been
retort.
answered yet, isn't? You're talking to a man who's saying he's not responsible for his arguments, for the things he says and does.
Well,
Of course,
I'm,
you come over here because you want to feel better about yourself. You don't like what you've been doing. So this man is telling you you're not doing the bad things you're doing. And it makes you feel better. I get it.
okay, you get it, but repetitive complaining. Expand your script,
You
please.
can't answer it. It doesn't need to be expanded. He's stuck at the gate.
Well, okay, so
You
now
know,
what? Now what?
it means you have someone here exposed as teaching complete folly. He's completely fallacious and he knows it. And you say, now what? And you want to move forward anyway.
Yeah.
Well, that shows where you are. You're like, well, it doesn't make sense, but let's do it anyway.
Well, some of us are still growing in the grace and
What does
knowledge
that
of
mean?
God.
How does that solve the problem at hand?
I'm saying that some of us are still
You're not saying
growing.
anything. It's complete and utter nonsense day after day. Can't answer a basic fundamental question. The man doesn't think he's responsible for anything. Tell me something you're responsible for.
To what degree?
Good day.
Okay, that's it, Halsey.
That'll do her. Hey, thanks you guys for critiquing that. It was helpful. Appreciate
So
it.
when did you want to have that private discussion, JG?
Oh yeah, I mean,
I'm not trying to rush you, but my schedule is sort of in and out today with lots of things going on, and then I work until Monday or Tuesday.
what's your times like today?
You good in the next 30 minutes or so? I'm sure it won't take long.
Yeah, I
What are you
guess.
guys talking about again?
Past sins.
One more
Oh
time.
my God.
Past sins.
Oh, got it.
No, well, this even in the private chat though, the last time
The
I had a
things that I
private
say
chat,
in your private chat.
what's that?
The things when I'm in your private chat, not this chat in Aces, but your chat.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, your character. We had a private chat months ago, and then you came on Aces immediately after and said, "I don't know, JG, anything. I'm going to talk about aspects of the private chat." See, that's kind of the thing, right?
Okay, I owe you something? Like, I don't remember you saying that it was supposed to be kept all quiet, secret.
Well, I mean, you said it outright, so you were obviously at some sort of a crossroads, like where you had a position, like maybe it's not a good idea to talk about private chats and go public, but then you
If it
just
had been any information that was worthy of keeping private, then yeah, but it was basically us going through
Oh.
you not liking my past behavior. I was rude to Lionheart and a bunch of other people. I'm contentious, all of those things. I say things that cause
when
conflict.
you say you don't owe me anything, it's kind of like you're asking about the side chat, like you kind of just reflect that back to you.
Right. I don't. What you said that I owe you something. What do I owe you?
No, I'm not saying you did. I said you made the claim. I don't owe him anything. I'm saying when you apply that to you asking me about being in the side chat, it's kind of like the same answer right back to you.
I just think that I should be allowed to speak as freely as the other people that agree with you.
Yeah, I'm trying to do a certain thing on the channel, which is failing miserably right now. And trying to weed out certain behaviors of certain people and get it back to like one-on-one discussions, And it's too bad that people really aren't interested in that. So I've tried to offer like private chats. I guess the nature of navigating coherency.
If you want me to keep a confidence about a private chat, then just ask me to keep a confidence and I will.
Yeah, is that right?
You have to ask me to keep the confidence. If it's something that I don't feel comfortable keeping, I'll just tell you don't tell me.
Yeah, but you also hold a position that if things get bad enough, then you can release that confidence. Isn't that right?
Which confidence?
Well, like you might
If you
tell somebody.
swear me to a confidence, then I won't tell.
How do you know?
How do I know?
What keeps that in place? I mean, you have your own standard.
Patterns.
Yeah, the past, right? Like we assume that the future is gonna be like the past, but
JG, if you don't want to talk to me, man, it's fine. It's no big deal.
no, I will talk to you. But I guess these sort of things will come up. It's sort of like I'm already talking to you.
Right. I just didn't think you wanted to do this here in front of everybody.
Yeah, we can talk. I'll just see how this plays out right now. If anyone wants
That's
to say
fine.
anything.
Okay, go ahead. About the side chat. You're doing a thing with your channel. I heard you say that, and me being in your side chat would interfere with what you're doing.
Oh no, I was saying I don't know if Ace wants to talk about this stuff right now. We can still have that conversation. I was just saying.
Oh.
We can let we got 7 people here. If I'm just trying to talk about our stuff right now.
Okay.
Collision of Souls. Welcome back.
Good morning, or good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How is everyone?
Oh, we're dandy.
Is the dust settled?
I think so. We've established that we have a will, and we better use it in the right kind of way, or there's hell to pay. So there.
So there.
Have you used your will in the right kind of way today, Collision of Souls?
I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah, well, you better worry and hurry it up.
I gave that crap up a long time ago.
Wow.
I'm resting and I am what I am. God made me this way.
JG, was God's will here before you were born?
Ooh, wee, that's a tough one.
Coming in a little low. Let me see.
I didn't hear you say it. What?
I can't hear you either. I think Collision, you got some background noise with your.
Hold on, I do.
You,
Hold
you're
on.
not talking.
No, my oxygen concentrator's off.
Good to see you, Greg.
I said, was God's will here before you were born?
Yeah, I assume so.
That's a yes.
Yeah, that's a yes. Will God's will be here after you're gone?
Yeah.
Then why would you think you have any control of what's in between?
Because he gave me a will. He gave you a will too.
Yes, he
if
gave
you don't
me
have
a will,
a will,
but it's still subjected to the creative will that he has before I get to see what he created.
yeah, I'm still gonna move to the same position that I moved with Ace.
I
That
know you were designed to do that, and I'm glad that you're here. I praise God for bringing that type of contrast to us, because it's
if you're gonna make
security
argument,
for our salvation.
yeah, if you're gonna make arguments that you have a particular position that I don't have, and that yours is the right one, you're gonna need a will and a responsibility to do so.
And it was God that gave me the will to say those things that I said to you. It
I'm
wasn't
not
my will
saying
doing
that
it.
God didn't give us life. I'm saying when you engage.
Didn't he have to give you life through will?
I'm interrupting, but it's not my will. I moved to tell you all right now that I love you guys. There's something about this group of guys that's so electric. I like when you're all around each other. Thank you.
I have one other question. Isn't the word predisposition or preposition that you
Presupposition.
use an oxymoron?
Presupposition? No.
Yeah, because the supposition had to be there before. So why do you
It's
need
a
a pre in
belief
front
before.
of it?
It's
It's
a
prior
belief
to.
before.
It's
If I suppose I'm going to the store, then that's there before my mind says, let's go to the store. I didn't have to have a presupposition to suppose that
No,
in
Greg.
my mind before I went
No,
to the
Greg.
store.
The presupposition is that there's something at the store that you need to go get. That they'll have a thing that you need to get.
Okay.
yeah, you're presupposing all sorts of things. That the store is there like it was yesterday, which is basically induction.
Why is that
Uniform-
why is that
Why-
different
why
than
don't
me
you finish?
supposing?
Why don't-
What is that difference between
If you let-
supposing?
if you let me finish, you might understand. Before you go to the store, you're presupposing all sorts of things. Induction, that the future will be like the past. Uniformity in nature, that the store will still be there, that things still work the way they work. Identity
You don't go
over
to the
time,
tire store for grapes.
that you are you, that your car is the car, all sorts of things that you don't even make a conscious effort toward that are in place. We
So
assume.
all of those things that you just mentioned, I could have supposed without a presupposition.
Well, that's why you work your way back to your
Wait.
ultimate presupposition. Like you presuppose logic in the conversation and the way you think, the way you handle things. But then when you say, well, is there anything prior to logic? Is there an ultimate presupposition that holds logic in place? Things like that.
So, Greg, when you're hungry and you want some grapes, before you set
And
off
I'm
to
hungry and I want some drinks.
Grapes.
Oh,
Like
oh,
the.
Yeah, fermented
Okay,
grapes. That's right.
I see.
Okay, but hold on.
Bad
It's
hearing.
not about alcohol. Okay. So if you're hungry and you have a hankering for some juicy grapes, all right, before you get in your vehicle or the bus or however you go to get there, you have to presuppose that the place that you're going is going to have them. So you're not going to go by Michelin tire.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I have
Yeah.
to presuppose it's going to be there before I get there to find out my presupposition was indeed correct.
Right. You wouldn't presuppose that Michelin tire is going to also
How
sell
is that
grapes.
different from supposing that the grapes are there when I leave?
Because you have no. Okay. All right. When you say when you leave.
Yeah, I get in my car.
When
and
you leave your
I'm
house?
supposing the grapes are there. That's why I got in my car.
Yeah. You're presupposing. You don't know yet that they have grapes. You don't even know that the grocery
I don't know
store
yet,
still
but I
has grapes.
suppose they do. That's what motivated me into my car.
Right, you're
I didn't
supposing it.
have to presuppose it.
But okay, I see what you're saying. You're just trying to eliminate the pre because
Yeah,
that's
because
the
it's
part.
redundant. It's an oxymoron. It doesn't need to be there.
It doesn't need to be there. It is there.
It's from a
Where in
pattern
the
of
scriptures
experience.
does it say presuppose?
The
No, you're not gonna-
presupposition.
You're not going to
It's
see
from
the
a-
word presuppose in the scriptures, but for instance,
Exactly my point.
okay, we don't see bicycle in the scriptures, but we see bicycles, Greg.
No, I'm saying it is my point because you're using it as a spiritual argument to obtain some kind of reality that we don't understand that you do.
I'll give you an example. Paul presupposes the resurrection of Christ. That's basically his ultimate presupposition. He says, without that, all my witness is in vain. He holds that in place ultimately, and then he follows from that and witnesses and lives his life out. As believers, we would say the same thing, that we presuppose Christ. Romans 10:9. We profess with our mouths and believe in our hearts that he is risen from the dead.
So we're not going to know that's true until we meet him. It's just a pre-guess that it's going to
No.
be true when we get there.
I wouldn't make arguments that I'm guessing that, but you
It
might.
sure sounds like it.
Well, do you know it or do you guess it?
What about Christ going to be there?
No, about Christ's resurrection. Do you presuppose that's true or do you just guess?
I know
that's
it has to be true. It's too right to be wrong.
Right.
This world exists. It's not a supposition of mine. It's evidence before me. It's the Spirit talking inside of me. It's the Word that moves when I read it.
It's prior to your
To what?
it's prior to your assumptions. Essentially, like you'd be saying the same thing I do. You don't know how to run the argument, or you don't run the argument the same.
I don't put the glory on me. I put the glory on God.
Well, how can you do anything if you're a fully determined vessel?
That's
what
right. You're right. I am
But
on the
you're-
stage
but you're
performing
saying-
His
you're
script.
speaking-
I'm not performing my script. I'm performing His script.
So you're saying you're doing things is a figure of speech. All
No,
the
my
things
doing things is
like
literal.
a bunch of things you
I'll
just
send you
said
to
about
my
going to the
nose.
store. You're just saying figures of speech, and you're actually not doing it. You're essentially, you break down to being an illusion because you're saying, well, I'm saying things, I'm saying me, I'm saying I am doing things, but I'm not actually. It's God doing it. So what you see here in the relative is an illusion. This is what I've pointed out to you in the past.
It's a theater. It's a show.
Theater is is illusion in a sense. It's a different term for the same concept.
I don't know. When you go to the theater and you watch what's going on the stage, are you in a fantasy? No,
In a sense,
you're in
yes.
reality. You're literally seeing the stage.
No,
and
the
what
theater
story
itself.
is upon the stage.
I know, but the theater in the movie is, in a sense, an illusion. It's not a reality.
It depicts, sometimes it depicts reality. What was his name? There was a comedian, man. His depiction of reality was hilarious. I'm surprised he didn't go to jail. But no, and I'm just saying that a presupposition means I know ahead of time what's going to happen. And you don't. All you can do
No,
is
not
suppose
necessarily
that it's
what's
going to
going
be
to
there when
happen.
you arrive.
Not necessarily what's going to happen. You presuppose God. God starts reality. You presuppose that in what you profess. Do you not?
Oh, I know God started reality. It's here. I didn't do it.
What day do you wake up? What day have you lived where God wasn't prior? As you asked me earlier.
There is no day that I woke up that God
Or
wasn't
you
already there.
presuppose God.
No, it means God was here before I got here, and He's going to be here after I'm gone.
It's just
I don't have to presuppose that. I know it to be true.
it's just sort of squabbling over the term.
Yeah, squabbling,
The term
we're
fits what you're
squabbling
saying.
over terms that aren't even scriptural terms, which has no benefit to us as far as the risen Christ or the glory that we receive through His work on the cross.
Well, I disagree. It has benefit to those who understand the terms.
Yeah. I haven't heard anybody else come up and agree with you.
Well, is reality, is truth an appeal to popularity?
So the popularity don't even know they're alive.
No, the question
Yeah.
was you sort of made an implication that I need people to agree with me for what I'm saying to be relevant.
I think you need people to agree with you so you feel secure in what you believe is true.
Well,
I think
I
for
guess I'm
you,
up,
truth is by vote.
I think that's what I was just pointing out, what you were trying to imply.
That's my opinion.
It's like you presuppose God, and you're like, well, I don't like that term, so I'm going to reject the implication.
Well, actually, suppose has a lot of doubt in it. I don't have doubt. I have faith that God is here doing everything He was doing long before I got here, and He's going to be doing what He's doing long after I got.
Yeah.
I
But when
don't
you
have
say
to
you
have a
have
doubt.
something, when you say you have something and you can doubt, you seem to be implying that you're doing something.
No,
but
I
when,
said presuppose
let me finish.
carries with it
Let me
doubt.
finish. But when questioned, you'll say you're not doing anything. So you're back and forth. You're in
When did I
contradiction.
say I'm not doing anything, JG? I said
You're
I have
gonna
a
say it's
will,
in-
but
you're
it's
gonna say it's
subjected to
relative
God's will.
I understand you're going to say it's in a relative perspective, which is a theater, which again is an illusion.
It's a damn convincing one.
There you go. You hold a philosophy that you're illusory. You profess
not
that you
illusory,
you
it's
live in a
reality.
relative illusion, and you want to profess that to be true. But
Did Jesus
you
die on
become-
the cross, JG? Was that
Listen
an
to me.
illusion?
listen to what I'm saying to you, though. If you put yourself in an illusion, whether purposefully, or accidentally, what comes forward after that, what you profess, how is that not also part of the illusion? You dismiss
So,
your own teaching and don't realize.
You just missed JG. You did. You just dismissed yourself, and all of your arguments just
Nice
went out
try.
the door.
So that's a very weak attempt, and you do that a lot too. You do the tu quoque, and you go for the
Yeah,
reverse.
I'm not as good as you, JG. I'm not as aware as you are. I can't.
Now
talk
you're
as
going
well
for
as
like
you
the
do. I can't
sympathy
articulate as well as you do.
thing, right?
You're really the one that knows it all. But you know what? It's what you learn after you know it all.
Is that how you react to somebody? Like if you don't like them and they might be teaching you something, is this how you react?
No, I try to listen to everybody and evaluate what it is they're saying, but it's evaluated against what I know is true. And if what I know is true is still true after what they've supposed I was going to understand, then I still believe what I was going to believe.
For you to evaluate, you need to have a conscious will in order to do so.
So the Spirit does the evaluation and lets me know if it's true or not.
In order for the Spirit to talk to you, there still has to be a you with a
When
will.
I hear the law keeper say, you can't be saved unless you follow the law, the Spirit's inside of me saying that's a bunch of crap. And
If
it
they're
shows me
doing
the
that-
verses that say that's not true. So I
If
believe
they're
the
doing
Scriptures
that
and
in
the
your
Spirit.
work, look, Greg, if
You're
that's
over talking me now.
You're right. My bad. If that's what they're saying in your worldview, you've said that they have no choice. God is making them say that. So there's no problem. There's no argument against that.
No.
But you see, that's the thing. You seem to be arguing. And then when this is pointed out, you're like, oh, no, I'm not arguing. But Will, we can do the. You want to do that private chat, or is Will gone? I guess.
He may have stepped away for a second, but he hasn't left.
All right. Well, I'll go. I'll fire up a stream, and if I'll wait for him to come by for about a half hour. If you want to tell him.
Okay.
But thanks for doing for the critique, and God bless you guys. Take care.
God bless you too, JG. I love you for who you are. You really add a lot of contrast to the show.
All right. Take care.
The sovereignties and the authorities among the celestials like it when you come in too. Okay then. Hey, Halsey.
Hey there.
Are you an attorney or a legal secretary?
No.
Man, you speak with all the efficiency and the attack and everything already set up, just like a legal secretary would.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't usually have too much confidence in how I approach things because I get kind of anxious when I start hearing myself talk, and I think,
Yeah.
uh-oh, am I sounding
Yeah.
okay? Am I sounding
do
like
too.
an idiot?
I do too, but I'm not. I wish I was more like Ace in some respects. He just patiently sits there and waits there and then does his response. Sometimes I get triggered, and when I get triggered, some of my best responses come out. Also, some of my worst ones. But it's what God put on the